So here we are today in our Talking Heads special, where we're talking about making more money from your wide format printing equipment. How do you make more money from a piece of wide format kit? Well, this is what we were talking about earlier in our pivot into personalization type of presentation. So it's really about finding new customers. It's about finding ways of attracting new people or finding applications to sell to existing customers. I think that's one of the most important points to consider. You've already got investments in kit, you've already got machinery there, you've got digital printing, you've got cutting, you've got everything there that you can do. So what else can you do to maybe keep selling? And that's the important bit. So what I'm going to do now is bring on my first guest, which is Brett Newman, who is the current Managing Director of Hybrid Services. Good morning, Brett. How are you?
Hello, Colin. Good morning.
Nice to see you, and thanks for joining, Brett. So we're talking about how to make more money from your wide format equipment and what you've perhaps already invested in. So in your opinion, in the current state of the market that we're in and the situation that a lot of sign makers will find themselves in, what's the starting point for rethinking your business, and where can you be going?
Well, it's a challenging environment for everyone. And I think that everybody is looking at the business, finding out where they can do more to their existing customers, finding out what they can do new to those customers that they have, but also looking at new markets and new customers as well. I think that a good starting point is actually to have a conversation with their suppliers, whether that's the media suppliers, because a lot of people use the same media from the same suppliers. They never go back and ask what's new. Mm. So there's a lot of new media that therefore then opens up new applications, which they can obviously then sell on and offer new product to their existing customers and also to new customers. I think that they should talk to the machinery suppliers, because a lot of the machinery suppliers will know the trending applications, and also the resellers are happy to support their customers if they need additional training on anything or how-tos. And also, I think it's important for people to network with similar businesses, so that they are not saying no to their customers. Always say yes to the customer, and then worry about how you produce it. And whether that's going back to advice from your suppliers, or whether that is working with someone else in a reciprocal partnership that benefits everyone.
So even if you have to farm work out, take it in, and then find a route to producing.
Yeah, always say yes. Always say yes. Is the advice that I would give, because the chances are, if you say no, your customer will go elsewhere to buy what they want at that particular point in time, but they're likely also to buy from that other supplier what they've been buying from you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So retain your customers as close as what you can, and talk to your customers regularly and keep that relationship.
We talked about personalization in our panel chat just earlier with Jim from Magic Touch and John Paul Burton from YES. What about from your perspective? Is personalization something that people should be thinking more about?
Well, in these challenging times, we can see that actually our end customers that are doing personalization are the ones that actually have weathered the storm really well. And, if I've always said that people will buy emotions, and people are willing to pay a premium for emotion. And in the fact that in lockdown, grandma can't see the grandkids. So what better than sending a cushion or something that's personalised with a picture of the grandkids on, and that personalisation really is a real value to that individual. But also people are willing to pay for it because they know how their loved ones will cherish it when it arrives. They know what it will mean to them. They're willing to pay a premium for it, whatever it may be, from a tea towel to a cushion to a phone case, whatever that is. Personalization in lockdown is key to relationship, into people feeling good about themselves, seeing the pictures of whatever it is, from the grandkids to the dog, to the girlfriend, whatever. It is, personalization is a marketplace that during lockdown and during this 7-8 months and going on for whoever knows, will be in demand.
I know that from a personal perspective, it was my wife's birthday at the beginning of the year, and I was writing an article about personalisation, and I thought, well, I might as well try it out. So I arranged for her to have a phone case with her parents' photograph on it, and her parents had passed away a few years back. And funnily enough, I was telling the kids about it, and now my children are grown up, and they were mocking me for printing, old people on a phone case. When I gave it to my wife, she burst into tears, and she's treasured it as the most precious gift that she's ever been given. She loves it, and she's of course told all of her friends, all of her relations about it. So, yeah, people pay for emotions, and I think that's something that the viewer really needs to take on board there.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be really advanced. That actually you can personalize things with really core and basic technology, in the fact that you can cut vinyl on a vinyl cutter and apply someone's name to something, and all of a sudden you've personalized it with a very low cost of entry and an addition. And so we talk about phone cases which are manufactured by desktop UVs, but you don't need to actually be at that level of investment to do personalization. It's just about using your technology, whatever that technology you've got, using it differently and finding a slightly different market and offering a different application and product to your customer.
Okay, Brad, thanks for that. Well, I want to bring on my next guest, which is Phil McMullin, who is the sales manager for Pro Graphics for Epson. So, Phil, are you there? By the magic of technology, he'll be here. Like we always say, if it's going to go wrong, it will go wrong. So, Brett, I'll continue chatting with you, mate.
Okay.
So when Phil's ready to join us, I'm sure he will. But so yeah, personalisation. I mean, here he is. He's Phil. Hello.
Morning, gentlemen. Apologies for that. Slight technical gremlins. Hello, Brett. Good to see you again.
Hiya, Phil.
Well, Phil, have you anything to add to what Brett was chatting about there in terms of personalisation?
I missed quite a bit of it because we were, having technical problems.
Okay.
But I did catch the end of what Brett was saying, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, there has been huge changes in technology even over the last 12 months. There's been advances in technology, so you're always in a strong position if you have the latest technology at your disposal. But you need, in tough times, you need to maximise the return you're getting on the existing equipment. And as Brett said earlier on, there are lots of ideas, lots of new applications that you probably haven't even considered on the technology you've got, whether that's a dye sub, whether that's eco-solvent, whether it's a existing resin technology or direct to garment. So by partnering with a value-added reseller who has the knowledge built up over many years from having discussions with other people in the business. Brett talked about networking. you network with your suppliers. Pick a supplier who has that depth of knowledge, who has all of the consumables and additional bits of software and hardware, whether it's pre-treatment equipment or finishing equipment, and get to know them really well. Build a relationship with the account managers and use them as a consultant. They've got years and years of knowledge built up, and probably have seen all of these applications many times before, can advise you what's easy, what's difficult. And critically these days, with the amount of different medias coming on stream, we look at textiles, for instance. 5 or 6 years ago, you had a really limited choice of textiles, and most of them weren't particularly pleasant to wear. So if you were trying to produce something like this shirt, polyester shirt, it was not particularly nice to wear on an exhibition for 3 days. You probably would prefer a cotton shirt. Now with the advances in textile technology, a lot of these fabrics now feel like natural fabrics, feel like silks, feel like cotton, and they produce fantastic, poppy, stunning results. So but you're not going to know about that. Most businesses are running flat out 24/7, don't have time to think about where they can go, think about their direction and their strategy. Use your partners to help you with that. They've got that knowledge, but you need to build that trust with them. They're not going to impart that knowledge to you unless you've built a relationship with them, and you're using them on a regular basis, and you're exchanging that loyalty with them as well. It's about loyalty and commitment. We're big believers in that at Epson. It's a bit of a Japanese trait, as I'm sure Brett will sort of back up. But loyalty and integrity is a big part of our business relationships, and if you show that kind of loyalty and integrity to your suppliers, they'll help you out in the tough times, advise you, guide you, tell you which are the best products. Clearly, some products are more expensive than others. Some of them have good performances, even if they're lower cost. And you're not going to know that until you've tried it, unless you talk to someone who's an expert in it. So that would be my guidance to anybody who's out there having a tough time.
The last time I spoke with Brett, face to face, we were chatting about the number of machines in the Mamaki portfolio, and I think we got to around about something in the region of over 30, wasn't it, Brett? It was about 33.
Yeah, something like that.
I know that Phil Epson at one point was releasing a machine almost on a weekly basis. What's your sort of portfolio size now in terms of scale and, in terms of the broad church that you can offer the market?
Colin, in all honesty, I couldn't actually answer that one, but to answer it as best I can in terms of where we are as a business. We're slightly different from a Mackie in that one of our core businesses is the photo market and fine art production, which is quite unique to us in many ways. So a lot of the products that we were launching, when you came to see us those few years ago, were in that market, the photo market, the fine art market, the proofing market. Since then, we've then moved into the much more heavily into textile, whether that's dye sublimation, whether that's DTG. We launched the F3000 Shore Color production DTG unit earlier this year. And we've also seen big advances in our DTF or direct-to-fabric technology as well. This is coming from the acquisition of Robustelli, you remember, a few years ago in Italy. So that's been moving on a pace, and we've seen, again, a big announcement from Epson globally on a new entry-level DTF machine. We're talking a couple of £100,000 now as opposed to £400,000, for instance. So we're bringing that barrier to entry down, is making it more affordable without losing the quality and without losing that productivity that people have come to expect. So I couldn't honestly tell you what the number of units is nowadays, but it is substantially different from, for example, when I joined Epson 7 years ago, it was pretty much photo and proofing was our core market, and we were just dabbling in some of the other areas. We've seen that advance, signage and textile being the big growth areas globally for Epson and in the market generally, and we're looking to take advantage to that. So you've seen a lot of product from us this year, despite the COVID restrictions, and we do keep our cards very close to our chest in terms of new products, but I can assure you, you'll see a similar kind of rollout from Epson in 2021, and that will be across all of the ink sets that we've now moved into, whether it's UV, resin, aqueous, eco-solvent, DTG, DTF. It will be across all of those areas.
Thanks, Phil. Right, well, I want to add a little bit of Roland to the mix now, so I shall bring on my next guest, which is a man whose name I constantly get wrong and mispronounce, so I'm going to apologise up front, but it's Rob Golenioski, who's the head of sales for Roland DG wide format. Oh, and Rob, there you are, as if by magic. That's perfect. Thank you for joining us, Rob.
No, you're welcome, and spot on pronunciation as well.
I'm getting better, aren't I? It's practice makes perfect, Rob.
To be fair, I've answered to worse, so it's okay.
Well, look, Rob, so we're talking about how to get more out of wide format, and maybe your existing kit, but maybe are there other things that you can move into, that you can pivot into, and maybe even just with a small investment bolt on to some of your existing kit? I mean, what can you tell us about things from Roland's perspective?
Yeah, I think the points that Brett and Phil have made earlier, absolutely, I agree with, and they're all really valid. And the two things that I was thinking of was as well as talking to your suppliers, have a look at the various market trends and see what's popular. I mean, the younger people in our company, they will like to watch programs like Love Island. I know, because I remember shortly afterwards, we saw loads of those personalised water bottles everywhere. That were just a really simple bit of vinyl stuck on them. And you can't help but think, if half the company have got them, then there's going to be a lot of demand for it out in the world there. So just something as simple as being aware on television or films of other kind of trends and popular products that you can add easily and market is definitely something I would recommend. And I would also recommend that people are probably selective in that vein as well. I mean, as everyone's mentioned, versatility is a word that often gets thrown around, and you can do so many different things with your machine. But that doesn't mean to say that you always have to. You can afford to be selective and choose products that are not only easy and cheap to produce, but are also profitable for you as well. People are having to work under different circumstances at the moment. In some cases, that is with reduced teams. So it's important that you work smarter and not harder. And pick the business that's going to give you the most return for your time and investment. So definitely have a look at what's out there and be where the audience is. Social media is an obvious one. More and more these days, people are doing things like looking at Facebook for their supplier of these type of personalized products, or other areas like Etsy or Not on the High Street, and you get some great inspiration of those from those sites as to what people are buying, and as a result what you could potentially produce. So definitely have a look at the trends would be a key one for me. And the other bit I would also look at would be what could you potentially add on to what you've got with a very very low extra investment that could open up new markets for you as well. If you're in the signage game and you've got yourself an eco-solvent wide format print and cut machine, then by simply adding on a heat press, for example, you could quite happily open up that door for personalized garments of some description, whether that's kind of stag and hen t-shirts or sort of fashion or workwear as well. So the same people that are having their sign written from the sign maker, or their van with graphics and livery, they could be buying workwear and graphics to go on their clothes as well.
Okay, that's very interesting. One of the things that I wanted to talk about briefly, which is not about so much personalization, but I did want to talk to both Roland and Epson while you were on today, is that you guys have finally caught up with Mimaki by introducing a flatbed. Now, I think this is an important step for sign makers at the moment, to be able to look at how they are adjusting their businesses. So I'll go back to Phil for that. You've launched your flatbed. I think it's a very interesting, good machine, and as I do think that about the Roland. But what's your thinking about that, Phil?
Well, from our point of view, we have been expanding our portfolio, as I mentioned, over the last 7 or 8 years, and signage has become a big part of our business. So I think if you wind the clock back 5 years, we weren't on anybody's shopping list. No one considered us as a valid player in the signage market. We cut our teeth and established our reputation in the photo, fine art, and proofing market, and that's really where most people felt we stayed. We launched the SureColor Eco Solvent lineup, the second generation, about three or 4 years ago, and that has really taken us into some great places and been incredibly successful for us, using the basic principles of Epson technology, which is the best possible print quality, consistent print quality, hour by hour, day by day, week by week, really ease of use and limited or the minimal amount of maintenance for the end user, relying on the equipment to maintain itself, flexibility in terms of what the products our printers can print onto, so giving you that versatility that Rob was mentioning earlier on, and then that core reliability which comes from the ownership of our own printhead technology, the piezo printhead. So it's for us is we have that YUV specifically. We have that UV technology already in our industrial label printers. The SurePress 6034 has been out for four or so years as well. So we have knowledge in that UV ink set. We know it's very difficult to handle, and you've got to be really top of your game to actually produce a unit that is going to be reliable and consistent and produce that quality. So we've worked out how to use that ink set with our piezo print heads, and as we expand into the signage market with the technology we have on Eco Solvent now with resin, UV was the logical place to go. We have one product at the moment, so it's a starting point for us. We're putting our toes in. It's very much an entry level product, but it will have all of those characteristics that people have learnt to expect and love from Epson. Okay,
well, Rob, can you just expand on Roland's view on that as well, please?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we have sort of a top of the tree flatbed now in the form of the IU1000F. But we have actually had quite a few different flatbeds over the sort of the last 5 or 10 years as well. Most recently with our S series range, which had sort of a wide variety of features about them. Again, versatility being one of the key pieces. So with the addition of the IU, you've got a nice staggered growth platform now of Roland machines. And another of the words that was mentioned earlier was loyalty. And actually, loyalty is one of the reasons that Roland has introduced the IU, because we've for a long time been very successful with the sort of small to medium sized companies using our equipment. But those small to medium sized companies don't always stay small; they get bigger, and as a result, they require bigger equipment. They require a different spread of equipment to match their own ambitions and their growth plans. And that's what we've got with the IU1000. But these customers that know and trust Roland want to stay with Roland. So when they're looking at additional equipment, they want to buy another Roland that suits what they're looking for, and that's one of the main reasons why the IU1000 has been added to our portfolio.
Thanks, Rob. Brett, before I bring on my next guest, do you have anything to add to that? Because Mamaki has been in the flatbed game for some while. With its industrial printers. I can remember going back 6 or 7, 8 years ago and seeing industrial UV printers now. So how are you seeing the trend for that, for people that are actually, upgrading their productivity? What's feeling on it?
We've had flatbeds since 2006. And
wow.
Yeah, so we've had them a while, to say the least. And I think we're probably on the 4th generation. We have a range of flatbeds from entry level to high production, both in sizes as well, in the variant from 8x4s and 10x5s. And we also have a double bed. So really, where you toddle between beds. So you print one board, it goes on to print the next while you're unloading and loading the board. So productivity and productivity at the same time. I think what both Phil and Rob said is that, of course, brand loyalty. People like the brand, whatever brand they choose, they tend to stay with it. And Rob said the point about people growing their businesses, and we probably got more stepping stones than any other brand, that people can come in at whatever level they want, but also then step up step by step. But perhaps people skip steps, and that's what we're seeing with ourselves. That people that, for instance, would have a JFX 200 a few years ago, now are either buying the latest EX model or jumping up to a JFX 500 because they've got their established marketplace on the on flatbed, and then are growing for more productivity. So, flatbeds are becoming really popular again for the ease of use, the speed, and the fact that it removes labour cost, and also removes cock-ups. And we all cock up when we're producing something, but when you're trying to print onto vinyl, mount it onto a board, laminate it, there's lots of processes. So whatever flatbed a customer chooses to go with, they will get great benefits from it in productivity, speed, ease of use, and removing the cock-ups.
Okay, I want to bring on now a gentleman who is Garry Brown. He's the managing director of Your Print Specialists, who is actually a reseller of McMullin, Epson, and Roland. So, Garry, are you there? Garry, are you there? Yes, you are. Hello, Garry. Welcome.
Hello, welcome. Hello, everybody.
Hi, Garry.
So, Garry, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Your Print Specialists. And one of the things that I'm most fascinated to hear about is what do you call it? It's the textile.
I've got to improve things, but you can never remember the name, Colin.
I can never remember the name of it, can I? What's it called?
It's interesting listening to Brett, Phil, and Rob, and just made a couple of notes there because Brett's kicked away with saying, that we should be looking at networking with other suppliers and manufacturers and customers alike, particularly in the challenging circumstances we find ourselves in. And Phil then went on to talk about working with value-added resellers, and Rob mentioned, versatility and diversity, and that's very comforting for us because what we're trying to offer here is a community where we can share knowledge and skill share. It's been a long road. It's been a couple of years in the making, actually, and we've been down through a few blind alleys trying to work with education and government, but like most things, if you want to get it done, you've got to do it yourself. So we're introducing this Your Print Institute, and it was born out of when we were doing demonstrations and we were telling people, you can make a cushion, you can make some curtains, and all things we've talked about today, personalization. People are saying, great, yeah, but how? How do you make that cushion? How do you set up the curtains? I mean, how do you color manage? There's a lot of skills they didn't have. They had a lot of skills. Some people who are coming to the demonstration had a lot of skills, but were lacking in the areas. And I think we'll all agree there is for sure a skill shortage. As people are buying more and more of the technology. I know I could sell more machines if I had customers who had more skilled workforce. So our customers where their core business may not be print, don't have the necessarily historical skills within the company to have new employees who could be account managers, they could be operators or whatever. So we want to offer that so we can offer so people can have more portable skills, be more employable, be the next entrepreneur. So it's creating this community where we're also introducing ambassadors who have the necessary skills in each discipline. Where if we don't know how to help them, I'm sure one of our ambassadors could. For instance, our skills are print. So most of our work within the Institute are going to be print related, color management, printer maintenance, basic operations of assigning digital solvent machine, could be print and cut, many things. So then that leads us into other areas where we don't have are not as strong as some of our ambassadors are. For instance, I've got to make a note of some of the ambassadors because there's a lot of them. Beth Travis of Bobo Design, who you know, Colin, who recently won the FESPA Gold Award for design. Some of her designs are fantastic, and you know, she's coming on board to do some courses for us and lead the way in design. Great role model, great ambassador. Then we have Anthony Devine, which I'm sure you've all heard of before, Ministry of Upholstery, all things upholstery. We've got dye sublimation supply guys, Adam Henderson. They have a school of sublimation, so they'll be doing a lot of courses on how to. But we still haven't sort of left our roots with, you know, there'll be courses on UV, promotional goods, there'll be print and maintenance, colour management, wallpapers. So these courses are in-house, but a lot of our ambassadors are dotted around the country. We've got Ministry of Upholstery in Manchester. We have dye sublimation supplies in Carlisle. We have ourselves in Newcastle. We have Horton Down in London. So we're creating these vocational learning centres as, you know, added value to try and get saleable products to market. Because it's one thing as a new starter, and it's one thing to be diverse, but it's another thing to tap into a community who has the necessary skills. If it's a print skill, we'll have it. If it's upholstery, you'll have Anthony Devine. If it's design, you have Beth, and so on and so on. I think it's something we're very proud of, and we've seen a lot of early success with. The pandemic hasn't helped with getting the institute open as quickly as we can, but people want somebody tangible, somebody they can relate to. They want a comfy blanket. They need the advice. They need the support. And Brett, Phil, and Rob's already touched on, you know, adding value, diversifying, networking, and that's everything that your Print Institute hopes to bring.
So, Garry, from a viewer's perspective, if they want to find out more information about your institutes and the various pieces of training and advisory guidance that you can provide, what's the website they should go to?
The website's just about to be launched. It's in the background, where the website will allow you to log on and secure a course that you want to get, that you're interested in. There'll also be open days. There'll also be an opportunity to request a course, because it could be something that's not print related. It could be a sewing course. So it's yourprintinstitute.co.uk. That will be launched very shortly, and everything you need on there as a resource to get involved is there for you.
So in the meantime, interested parties ought to contact you through your existing website and find your email addresses and so forth, which is Your Print Specialists.
yourprintspecialist.co.uk.
Okay, that's fine. I want to go to Rob now. We've talked about Garry's institute that he set up. Now, Roland has been very, very, very active with Academy. It's one of the things that I think is extremely good. And it is about that loyalty. It is about teaching people, isn't it, Rob? What can you add to that?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and like you said, we've run the Roland Academy for a number of years, and the philosophy has always been, you know, we don't just want to sort of, you know, sell you a printer. In fact, actually, my personal philosophy is I don't want to sell anybody anything, but I want to help them buy the right thing for their business. And there's a big difference, in my opinion, between selling somebody something and helping them buy. But the next piece in the puzzle has been helping them get the most out of their investment. And that's really what the sort of the background and the philosophy with the Roland Academy is. And we've run that for a number of years in physical format, of course. And we've welcomed hundreds of people through the Roland doors over the years to be trained by us as the people that know the machines best on how to use them, how to maintain them, and how to hopefully how to make the most money out of them as well, which is ultimately, you know, why people are buying the equipment. We've advanced that over the last few months, and whether you call it by luck or by judgment, We launched the online academy pretty much in the middle of lockdown. Actually, I think it was the summertime. So what we've done is we've created a really big suite of resources and videos for our customers to show them all the things that they want to know about their machine, but from the comfort of their own home or office. They can register for a free account. They can sort of get top tips on how to use their machines, how to sort of use the advanced functions that improve their productivity and their workflow, hopefully. But ultimately, it's all about, as Garry mentioned, increasing that knowledge to help customers use their machines more efficiently, more effectively, and more profitably.
Okay, well, I want to bring on the next guest now, because I'm really keen to build this screen and complete my pasta sauce, as I describe it, and add flavour. And so I want to bring on Alex Liggett, who's the owner of the Vinyl Guys. Hello and welcome, Alex.
Hello. How are you?
Alex is an end user, so he is the guy that's buying your equipment. So we're now going full circle. We've got representation from manufacturers, we've got representation with Garry as a reseller, and now we've got Alex here, who's actually a sign maker. Now, Alex, in terms of where you started out from and dealing with ways to make more money from your investments, I mean, you've had some setbacks this year, I'm sure, but you're still trading. How have you managed to overcome this?
Yeah, we've, 6 years ago, I started the business with a little desktop cutter in the spare room at home. And very quickly, through outsourcing my print work, learning the artwork side of things, and then deciding to invest in my own print equipment, that the business grew to where it is now. So it's gone from a part-time hobby, if you like, to my full-time job, where I now employ somebody full-time. The last few months, like you say, have been really challenging. And what I've got planned to sort of say, everybody has really already touched on. So it just goes to show how everybody is in the industry, from whichever manufacturer you come from or supplier, is singing off that same hymn sheet, which is we're all stronger if we're working together. And what people have already said about building relationships with your suppliers, and whether that's media suppliers or hardware or software, and also being part of a wider community of other printers or other embroiderers or whatever part of the industry you're in, there's huge value in that, and huge value in us all supporting each other and helping to put work each other's way. Now, for me, oh, sorry, Colin, were you going to say something then?
No, carry on. I was going to ask you a question, but you carry on then.
For me, the way that we've not only sort of survived the last lockdown and everything that's been going on, but also grown through it, has been a very early pivot from what was 80% of our main business, which was vehicle graphics, into smaller ticket items. So items that would cost our customers less, but we could really demonstrate the immense value that they could get from those small cost items. And the way that we did that was through where we normally reach our customers, which was through social media. And it's really been through years, and I'm talking 4 or 5 years of being on all of those platforms, so Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, every single day, just showing what we're doing, not pushing sales, not pushing special offers every day, but just showing our customers what we're doing and how we do it, and trying to help customers understand the process, the time, the work that goes on in the background to create that personalised product. And I listened to Jim earlier in the business session from the Magic Touch, and he really hit the nail on the head for me, which is that keeping in touch with your customers, and rather than being there pushing sales, send them a sample of what you're trying to do. Let them get in their hands the item that you're trying to explain to them has got some value, and let them see that value. And really, we've just carried on with our normal day-to-day business, and I'm happy to say that customers have continued to come to us because of the content that we're putting out every day.
How do you view our colleagues that we're working with as suppliers to the industry in terms of getting information? I mean, do you make good use of them? Are you always talking to your dealer and your manufacturer?
Yeah, I mean, I bug Rob quite regularly with text messages and emails with various things, and the same with Signmaster. And anybody that follows any of our social media feeds will know that, you know, we use Roland machinery, and our main supplier is Signmaster Systems, and that is one of the things I talk about, relationship building, and that's been huge for us, because over the years where I have grown from being in the spare room at home into a full-time business, all the way through that sort of process, I've promoted, talked about, shared information about, you know, about the things that Roland are doing and the things that they've helped us do, and the same with Signmaster. And that relationship, I think some people maybe look at and think, oh, you know, he must be getting something for doing that, or there must be some sort of kickback. Well, there is. I'm building a relationship with the people that I hope to be in business with for many years to come. And as I think Brett and you, Colin, earlier said, that the better that those relationships get, the more information sharing there is. And it isn't just a one-way street. It might be little tips from, you know, from Kai or Joe over at Roland about how I could do something else with one of our machines, or some information from Glenn over at Signmaster about what materials we could be using. It could be me passing some information back about something I found with one of the machines or one of the materials. It works both ways, and everybody gets value from that relationship then.
Okay, what about, let me ask you, Alex, have you found yourself moving into any new areas in terms of maybe textile printing or anything like that? Or is that something that would come more from your customers asking for it rather than you looking to evolve into?
We've not moved into any sort of direct-to-garment or sublimation print. We do have a heat press which enables us to occasionally do workwear, which is something that we offer to customers as an upsell. But Rob touched on earlier about versatility, and sometimes, although that's a brilliant thing, sometimes you can do so much that it can cause you to lose focus of the main parts of your business. And what I've always been a believer in when it comes to expanding a product range is to make sure that anything that we are thinking of doing extra is a natural bolt-on for the things that we do as the core of our business. And an example of that is when we're doing sign writing for, you know, for a vehicle, or signage for a retail outlet, things like business cards, leaflets, stickers, workwear, they all work hand in hand with our core customers. So we don't decide all of a sudden, let's do, you know, product X, and then we've got to go out there and find new customers. What I always want to do is make the most of what we can from the customers that we've already got. So people that are already buying from us, people that already trust us, they know the service that we provide. They're the people that we really want to develop products that we can approach with, because it's cutting down the work in half. It will naturally attract more customers, but we don't suddenly have to go out and find those customers in order to sell the new products that we're doing then. Okay.
Garry, what do you feel are the sort of trends that you're seeing in the market at the moment from your customers that are perhaps, you know, trying to find new routes to market and new revenues?
There's a couple of things. I mean, one customer has found a new product within the pandemic. They have a safe touch product, which is an antimicrobial product, which is for high touch areas. They've trademarked that. They're seeing huge success, you know, within transport, kids' soft plays. Things have changed a little bit over the last couple of days, but they did see some great inroads to a new product that was born out of the pandemic. That's a great example. We're seeing record digital ink consumable sales at Your Print Institute. So there is some good news out there. There is some people taking advantage of the challenging circumstances we find ourselves in. Yeah, there is new products to be had.
Brett, how about you from your perspective? Are you seeing any new trends developing? Have you got, or even just customers coming to you and asking for the advice that they might, you know, where should they go for this or whatever? Is that picking up?
I think that you know, we're seeing stuff coming through from people asking advice on things because people are searching more. So we're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of trend where people are doing nice to talk about charity work in support of NHS and promoting that. I think that From customers that contact us regularly, we're seeing more of that conversation happening. As Alex has said, you keep in contact with the suppliers, whoever that may be, and just to have the conversation and make certain that you're in the loop and know. And actually, as Garry said, sharing the information, because we have a conversation with one customer that helps actually the next conversation. And the network for me is important in the sharing of information.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I want to bring on my next guest now, which is the final guest, you'll be pleased to know, which is Ed Currer, who's the creative director for Vinyl Impression. Hello, Ed. Good to see you.
Hey there, guys. How you doing?
Very well. Ed, now you are an interesting print company in vinyl impression, is that you've also had to sort of start pivoting your business away from your core business. That's right. So what have you done?
Yeah, so we are a 10-year-old graphics company, and we tend to deal with interiors most of the time. So we've previously, up till COVID, been working and operating in the event industry, doing event branding by partnering with event venues to measure the whole space. And then when someone comes and hires that venue, we can offer branding bespoke to that space, which has been absolutely brilliant. The other side of things that we do is office branding, which is going into clients' offices and transforming that office space with wall graphics, floor graphics, hanging signage, wayfinding, and a plethora of other bits. And there's a huge amount of crossover between those two markets, where people have an office and they run an event, or they run an event and they've got an office. So it works really well. So we've got great relationships with our clients. And something I would love to add is also building your relationships with your clients as well is incredibly important, because like Alex was saying, actually, you don't want to just go out and buy a piece of equipment and then hope to God you get work from it. You actually want to be selling a product and designing that with the customer in mind, and kind of slowly but surely building that need up. And then you look to invest in a piece of equipment that will then serve when you know you've got consistent business coming in. So I know businesses will have used the government funding recently to go out and buy new equipment, which I'm sure lots of the guys on this panel will have been very thankful for. But I think from my perspective, I haven't actually looked to buy any new equipment during lockdown. For me, it's more about getting to know my customers a bit better, trying to ask them about what they're facing, what they're doing to change and kind of adapt to the situation, and then looking to find products that we can help in solving problems, very similarly to what Rob was saying earlier. Not necessarily about always selling something, but you're a problem solver, and Brett mentioned it earlier as well. It's about saying yes to the customer and then figuring it out later. So I love what we've been talking about already so far.
But you're involved in the exhibitions and events sector, which is difficult to say the least right now.
Yeah.
And you're also in the corporate office sector, where people are being told stay at home.
Yeah.
That's got to be difficult to operate in all round. So what are you doing to keep trading?
Good question. Well, one of the things that we've seen actually really positively is that actually a lot of our clients, we're encouraging them that in the office environment particularly, it's going to be very difficult to encourage staff back to the office after lockdown. I think that everybody's going to get, to a certain extent, used to working from home to a certain extent. Some people will love that, some people won't love that, particularly in London, where a lot of our clients tend to be from. People don't mind not traveling in for an hour to London in the packed tubes, especially in a pandemic. So I think for us, we're trying to say to our clients, look, now is the time, when you've always told us you don't have time to deal with this. Now is the time to work your space to look something like what I've got behind me and several of the other guys have got, something that is on brand, that is encouraging for staff, etc. So that's one of the things that we've done. And another thing is actually working with various agencies that we work with, who periodically we would have worked with on events, but they have a variety of different clients that they work with. And so one of the really exciting projects that we've been working with a particular agency over the last few months on is actually locker branding. So I'm sure you guys may be aware that on every street corner in central London, at least, and it's rolling out much further across the country, there are kind of Amazon lockers, and then there are other kind of contact-free delivery lockers that will be helping you either return a package or collect a package. And it tends to be the most important in cities where people are in high-rise flats and things like that, where deliveries aren't always that easy. So we've got a client that has asked us to put literally their logo and a little bit of information about, you know, their business on those lockers. And we said to them, look, how many of these are you going for? Let's discuss it with material suppliers. Let's try and work out what the quantity is going to be here. And we discussed over 1,000 lockers over this coming 6 months. We're like, this is amazing, fantastic. How quickly are you going to roll those out? And they sort of said, well, we're kind of waiting for funding, and there are a few ifs and buts at the moment, but we'll let you know. They gave us the first 200, and we went all over the country fitting them and working out how we could kind of install them and do that. That was pretty costly for the client to do that, because obviously we're sending an installer out to each location. We have to work with a network of installers across the country, from Scotland to Cardiff, and you know, all over the country. And so that's been a challenge. And so we've kind of looked at it as a problem-solving matter and said to the client, is there a way that when you bring these lockers in from wherever they're made in the East, is there a way that we could meet them at the warehouse where you store them before they go out? And maybe we could brand them there, because by doing them there, we can solve a problem by saving you money, making it easier for us, and the rollout is in a much more controlled environment for us as well. Fantastic. Client loved it. We halved their cost. We increased our value to them. We didn't necessarily make more money, but actually we took a short-term hit for a long-term perspective of keeping a client being a helpful aid to that client. Yeah. Then we discussed with them, hold on a minute, these are going into prominent locations like service stations, train stations in central London. That is absolute gold. Why don't we consider these blank lockers as a new advertising billboard? Why not partner with some of the companies that you're already working with, like retail companies that are selling clothing, etc. They would absolutely kill to have some branding on these lockers all over the country. Why not offer them some advertising on those? So we gave them that idea, and they've gone ahead and agreed that they've now got 5 retailers on board that want to roll out a total of over 500 additional lockers to the 1,000 we talked about before. And they're pulling them all forward because guess what? Those lockers are now paid for. And it's not necessarily always about coming up with a brand new product that none of us have heard about before, because vinyl graphics with a laminate on that go on a locker is something that anybody who's a print company could, in theory, do. Yeah. Just about understanding a market, looking at something in a slightly different way, and being that problem-solving approach really is the way that we like to run business, and clients will hold on to us for years to come because they know we're not just a print provider, we're a problem solver. And so that's what we've done recently. That's just a couple of examples of how we've tried to weather this storm.
I wrote an article at the start of the whole lockdown thing back in April, which basically encouraged sign makers to spend a little bit of time with their feet up on the desk, thinking about the direction they want to take the business, because they were going to need to do that. And it looks like you've very much done that, Ed. So in a conclusion, before I know that Jack will be on in a minute, and Jack will have a few questions from the viewer, but from your perspective, while we've got all these illustrious manufacturers and resellers on, is there anything that you would like to direct to them, Ed and Alex, that you might feel that they might be able to deliver to you or help you with, and help your peers? Alex, you go.
Something that we found over the last couple of years, we've started running print business growth workshops. So very much finding out there's so many people out there that are where I was a few years ago with a small cutter in a bedroom. And what they can get is they can get lots of input from suppliers about materials, and from the manufacturers they can get lots of input about the machines and what they can do. What they miss, and the sort of the area that we've worked with them on, is that bit in between, where it's how do we promote that business? Where do we find our customers? How do we work out pricing? So I think there's a huge opportunity out there, and there's certainly a lot of people that have got questions about that middle ground where the machine manufacturers and the suppliers could well do something very much like Garry's doing with the institute there, but on the business side of things, on the practicalities of actually starting a business. I think there's a market there where there would be some real interest with collaborations between manufacturers and their sort of their, where we could sort of put, you know, workshops and maybe something like this to try and further help people that are coming into the industry and really strengthen that industry long term and encourage more people to come in by helping them more.
Well, that's a good point, Alex, and it's something that we're trying to do with this event and the future events that we have, is to make it so much more inclusive for people. And I hope that the viewers will come back and they'll keep joining in with us, because, you know, this is very much a community that we're creating. And we do want people to keep coming back and keep joining in. And I would like our guests to come back time and again and be regulars, so that we can keep communicating with our market and keep educating the market. And I think, you know, we're all, we're never too old to learn something new, you know, old dogs and new tricks and all of that. Now, Jack, I see you've turned up like the Grim Reaper, which is probably to tell me that my time's up.
Well, not entirely, Colin, but thanks for the description. We are almost out of time, but it's been a fascinating discussion. There's been lots of interesting comments from the audience and the side panel. There's one that stood out. I thought I would ask it. You know, if everyone could have their crystal ball a little bit. Den has asked, in terms of surviving the lockdown, does the panel feel that smaller firms with lower overheads and a bit more sort of agile and flexible, are they better placed to ride out this difficult time than some of the larger companies who've invested heavily? They have servicing leases, bank loans. Do you think there's a better opportunity there for the smaller companies? And if so, what would the knock-on effect be for hardware and substrate suppliers in the near future? So, I mean, that's a great question generally for the panel. And then if anyone would like to volunteer for that one first. Who's looking most relaxed? Phil, would you?
I'm going to point to Brett as the chair. I will ask Brett to start.
Okay.
I knew you'd pick on me, Colin. It is a fantastic question, and thank you, Den, for asking it. You're right about small businesses being light on the toes, being nimble, being able to shift. It is a balance, of course, between having the latest technology and that latest technology giving you the advantage over the competition in the way of what it can produce in volume and in the cost per unit to produce. So it's always a balance, and I think that investing wisely with the right kit that gives you the right advantage is certainly a good thing to do. But it is that balance between being light on your toes and being able to pivot, I think is the word of the day, and pivot the business into producing work that keeps the income coming through the door, whatever size of the business.
What about you, Rob? Anything to add to that on that question?
No, I think definitely I'd agree with Brett's comments. I mean, it would be easy to say, yes, smaller businesses can be more agile and more fluid to change direction quickly. But I think there needs to be probably a desire for that to happen. Of course, you know, I'm sure there's a desire if work dries up in one aspect, but you know that means that people might need to just sort of be willing to look for new opportunities. I mean, I think Ed's example about, you know, working with clients for their efficiencies and actually sort of, you know, a slightly different marketplace is a great one. Using the skills that you've got, using the equipment that you've got, but, you know, as Brett mentioned, pivoting in a different direction, finding out, you know, what other opportunities there are. It's a bit cliche to say, you know, that it's not always black, it's only grey, but it's true. You know, when one door closes, another does open, and there are lots of things that have become difficult over the last 6 months. But that's also presented a lot of new opportunities. You've only got to look back to sort of April and May for when floor graphics was an exploding marketplace. Okay, it was busy before, it was massive afterwards. So I think for me, it's a question of being open to change and actually being ready to change as well. And that's the same whether you're a small business or a big business. I think you've got to do what you need to do to sort of, as Brett said, keep the money coming in.
Phil, anything to add to that?
Yeah, we've seen small businesses and large businesses do badly and do really well in the last 6 months. So it does depend on the leadership of the individual organisation. Is our experience. What I would say is that I'm actually in the Epson office today, which would normally house around 400 people. There's probably about 25 or 30 people maximum in the building today. We're holding it in our showroom so we can show off the equipment, which is obviously far too big for me to put into my lounge at home. So we're operating from the normal showroom. But there's more graphics. If I look around this building with the preparations that we put in place, ready for people to come back to the office, which is what we were expecting to happen over the summer period. And actually, we got pretty much back to about 40% occupancy here in our West Side Hemel offices, and we've obviously had to wind that back. But in preparation for that, we have got graphics all over the building. It's floor graphics, it's pop-ups, it's window graphics. We've got signs outside. We work with a small company called Max Media, who are a local provider, and we've kept Dave flat out over the last few months in getting us into a fit state where we could have a COVID safe environment. I'm really pleased to say no one at Epson, those 400 people, has tested positive at any point, but we managed to keep everything ticking over, keep everybody either working from home or a balance of working from home or being in the office. And we've had last week we had 2 weeks of demonstrations of and potentially customers coming in to look at our resin product in combination with virtual events like we're doing here today. So I think the guys have already talked about flexibility and looking at what else you can do, but the amount of graphics that I'm seeing around here is a good example of some of the work that has come to the fore over the last 6 months.
Garry, let me ask you then, in terms of Den's question, which is in terms of surviving the lockdown, do you feel that smaller firms with lower overheads are a better place to ride out this difficult time and lockdowns that we're going into, rather than large companies that might have made large investments? I mean, what's your feeling on that from your customer base that you see?
Well, it's certainly, obviously, the obvious one. They're a large mouth to feed, the big companies. I am getting quite a lot of feedback that should, I won't name the customer, but big customers are finding that they're getting smaller batch sizes. Instead of 20,000 runs, getting 2,000 runs, and they're adopting to that, which they're able to do these days because of the digital technology. But also, on the other hand, you have the smaller guys who are so much more flexible because they are a small amount to feed. That in itself creates bigger opportunities, particularly in the gifting and promotional sector, because there's reports of a 25 to 40% upsurge in the UK since the difficult times that we're going through. So there is opportunities for both. The larger companies who have the digital capability can be a bit more flexible on batch size because they're digital. But likewise, the smaller guys can be more flexible as well and take advantage of the opportunity.
I read a case study only a few weeks ago, actually, that crossed my desk from a large printer in Ireland. They bought a Swiss Cube print, and they bought it at the back end of last year. So they were obviously stepping up their productivity. But what they found was when if I remember rightly, when the lockdown came, what they did in order to pivot was to switch manufacturing, because they could actually print onto substrate. It was very fascinating. I read it with great interest, because what they were able to do was create a whole new range of products. And so what they did as a printer, I think it's called Vinyl Display, based out of Dublin. And what they did was that they created products for people in lockdown. So they started making, plywood desks that could be easily assembled and printed, and laptop stands and various things for, workouts and stuff. And according to the piece that I read, they were able to retain 95% of their staff because they'd already got this investment made in their flatbed. And I thought that was just fabulous, because that again is utilizing the equipment that you've got, and it's actually thinking about what else can we do. It's actually being, it is putting your feet up on the desk and staring out the window while thinking about the business. It's as simple as that. So, Jack, are there any more questions? Anybody has anything they would like to add? Or
there's no more questions.
Sorry, Jack. The only bit I was going to say is, if we do see larger print companies, not finding it as easy, then the smaller guys might be asked to do more. And from experience, Alex was saying earlier about starting with a vinyl cutter in his bedroom, I know what it's like. You have to find really good suppliers that you can outsource stuff to. And in those instances, actually, I think the trade sector could see quite a large boost from smaller companies looking to find a trade supplier that they can rely on to add new products to the range, because they're gathering more clients, but there's stuff that they might not be doing all day, every day, like vehicle graphics or whatever it is that you don't do every day. And you're like, I need it done and I don't want to mess it up. And I think that side of things is, I think the industry is great for partnership in that way. And so I think finding those trade suppliers is going to be crucial for those smaller businesses.
I think that's something that we should think about as an industry, but it's also something that we could explore, and we must talk to Faversham about that as well, as an extension of the information that we start collecting and creating, and that could be something that could be looked at. So I want to say thank you all for agreeing to sit with me today. I found it most fascinating. I thank you for your valuable time, because I know that, this is a busy time for all, and it's been great to have you on. Thank you very much indeed. And Jack, if there are no other questions, we'll close.
No other questions, please do go and check out the exhibitor booth. They're open till 1 p.m. Feel free to throw questions at all the people exhibiting and all our speakers here. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.